Hello guys, I hope you guys are doing well. Okay, so this video I'm going to start chapter 4.4, that is chapter 4 section 4, that is fundamental theorem on calculus. Okay, so in the last video we learned some basic antiderivative techniques, right, from the taking the inverse kind of the inverse way to find out the antiderivative, right? Or the reverse way of finding the antiderivative from the derivative. So on this video, we are going to talk about the definite integral. Okay, so what do you mean by the definite integral? Basically, the definite integral are the one that has the value, the limits as the numbers there, right? A to B or 1 to 2, 2 to 3, like that. And then you will have an answer as a single number instead of the function, okay? So there is a theorem that's name is fundamental theorem on calculus. What does it say is, if the integral or the antiderivative of f of x dx is uppercase fx, then if you want to find out the antiderivative of fx from a to b, then what you do is you plug in b on the integral for x and then do minus and then plug in a on x. Okay, so the antiderivative, basically what it does is, so suppose you have a function fx like this, right? So f of x, and then basically what you're trying to do is you are trying to find out this area. Okay, so you see from the section 4.3 that if you are trying to find out area from a to b under the function fx and above x-axis, so this is x-axis, this is y-axis, what does the formula say? The Riemann sum says is you can do a to b f of x dx is basically the sum of the tiny rectangles you form to find out the area, right? So basically this will give you the area under the curve. Okay, so the definite integral basically gives you the area. But what is the definite integral? Definite integral is the one that has the limits of integration a through b. All right, so let us take some examples and then the things will get clear. Okay, example number 1, I want to find out, say, -1 through 1 x squared minus 7 and then dx. So to do this problem, what you need to do first is you need to find the integral or the antiderivative of this. After you find out that, you will plug in those numbers on x. Okay, first of all you plug in the upper limit 1 and then you do minus and then you plug in the lower limit on the whole function, what you get after you integrate. Okay, let's solve this one. So solution, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find out the integral. Okay, what is the integral of x squared? It is x cubed over 3, right? Because it is x to the 2 plus 1 over 2 plus 1. And then minus, what is the integral of 7? It is 7x. But what do we do with this? You write parenthesis or the bracket and then write a vertical line and then write down -1 through 1. So after you find out the integration or after you find out the antiderivative of this function, you don't have to write this integral sign and then dx. What you do, you just write inside the parenthesis and then write a vertical line and then do -1 through 1. Okay, now what it says is, if fx is the integral of that, which is this is our fx, right? And to find out the definite integral from a to b, that is from -1 to 1, what you do, you plug in 1 for x. Let us do that. 1 cubed over 3 minus 7 times 1. I did fb, that is b is 1, right? A is -1. So minus, what you do is -1 to the cube. I'm replacing x by -1 over 3 minus 7 times -1 and then close the parenthesis. Why do I need parenthesis here? Is because there is a minus sign. You see that? Because of that sign, you need the parenthesis here. Okay. So 1 to the cubed is 1 over 3 minus 7 minus. What is -1 to the cubed? It is -1, right? Because it is -1 times -1 times -1. So if you multiply negative number 3 times, then you will get negative number over 3, and then plus 7, because negative 7 times negative 1. See that? So what you get is 1/3 minus 7, minus times minus is plus 1/3, and then minus times plus is negative 7. You see that? So what you get is 1/3 plus 1/3 is 2/3, right? And then minus 7 is negative 14. You see that? So what do you get if you simplify that? You can use calculator, or just, this is 14 means 42/3, right? So negative 42/3 plus 2/3 will be 40/3 with a negative sign. So this is the final answer you get. Okay, we'll do some more examples. Okay, let me do example, next example. So I'm picking these examples from the online homework. Okay, so you will see similar problem in your online homework. Let me do example number 2. I want to do this as the question is 0 to 2, 4x minus 1, and then square dx. I want to do this example for you guys. Okay, so how do I do this? Before I find out the integral, I have to simplify this. This is like 4x minus 1 times 4x minus 1, right? So how that look like? 4x minus 1 times 4x minus 1 dx. So let us simplify that. 0 to 2. If you fold this, 4x times 4x and 4x times negative 1, that way you will get 16x square, and then minus 8x, and then plus 1. This is what you get, and there is dx. Okay, now what you do is you do the integral of each of those terms. So what you get is 16x to the third over 3. You see that? Because the entire derivative of x squared is x to the 3 over 3, but 16 stays there. Okay, minus 8. What is the entire derivative of x? It is x to the 1 plus 1 over, because there is 1 in the exponent, right? So it is x squared over 2, and then plus, what is the entire derivative of 1? It is x. Okay, so what we need to do with these limits is draw a vertical line and then write 0 to 2. So let us continue that. What you get is you have a 16/3 x cubed minus 4x squared, because 8 times x squared over 2 is, you just divide 8 by 2, right? And then plus x. And then what are the limits? I'm just rewriting those. 0 to 2. Okay guys, now plug in 2 first for all of those, and then do minus, plug in 0. So you can do another way. What you can do is, for each of the term you can do plug 2 and then do minus and then plug 0, and for this term plug 2 and then minus, plug 0, and so on. You can do that too, or you can plug in 2 for all those and then do minus, and inside the parenthesis plug 0. You can do that too. So what I'm trying to do is I'm plugging in 2 for all of those. So 2 to the third, right? And minus 4 times 2 to the square, and then plus 2, right? And then minus, I will plug in 0 everywhere, right? So 16/3 times 0 to the cubed is 0, right? Minus 4 times 0 plus 0. So basically this thing is 0, right? So what is left here is 16/3 times, what is 2 to the third? It is not 6, right? It is 2 times 2 times 2, so that is 8. Minus 4 times 4, and then plus 2 minus 0, so you don't have to worry about that. So 16 times 8 is how much? You can use calculator. It is 128. Divide by 3 minus 16 plus 2. So if you simplify this, you will get 86 over 3. This is what you get. Okay, let us take another example. So example number 3, I want to take this is, let us say, find the integral of 5 through 6, and then there is a 9 over x squared minus 1. Okay, and then dx. I want to do this example next. So how do I do this? Is basically the same technique, but when you find out the integral of something that is in the denominator, the first thing you want to do is you want to move this to the numerator. Okay, So this will be so 5 through 6, 9 times x to the negative 2 and then minus 1. You see that? And then dx. All right. So what you can do here is you can find out the integral of that. So it is 9 times x to the negative 2 plus 1 over negative 2 plus 1, okay, minus integral of 1 is x. You see that? And then I will need a big vertical line and write those limits. See that? Let me simplify that. So 9 times x to the negative 1 over negative 1 minus x. You see that? And still we have those limits 5 through 6. Okay. So what do you get? You get negative 9 over x. You agree with me? Minus x. Okay. You can write a big parenthesis or a bracket. It does not matter. So here what I did is this is 9 over negative 1, right? So it is negative 9 and x to the negative 1 goes to the denominator and that becomes x to the positive 1, right? So let me continue from here. What you get there is plug in 6. You get negative 9 over 6 minus 6. I plug in 6 to both of those x, right? And then do minus, I need the parenthesis, plug in 5. Negative 9 over 5 minus 5, right? 5. I'm plugging in 5 next. Okay. So what do you get? Basically, you get, just simplify that, okay? Negative 9 over 6 minus 6 plus 9 over 5 plus 5. Because I'm distributing this negative sign to all of those. So if you simplify, you'll get negative 7 over 10. All right? Let me do another example. Okay, guys. So on this example, basically you have a cube root, right? So how do I find out the integral of this? So the limit here, the limit of the integration here is basically negative 1 through 1, okay? Let me write down that. So negative 1 through 1. So this is the definite integral. So to find out definite integral, first of all, you need to find out the value of the indefinite integral, meaning that without plugging in negative 1 through 1, and then you will plug in later, okay? So how do I do this? Is basically what you do is equals to, I would write, one time I write negative 1 through 1 and then t to the, do you know how do I write this in the exponent form? There is 1, right? There is 1 there, t to the 1. So this goes to the denominator of the exponent, so t to the 1/3 minus 8. And then I write dt. So if I find out the integral of this, you write t to the 1/3 plus 1. That's over 1/3 plus 1, right? And then minus, what is the integral of 8? That is 8t. You see that? So what are the limits of integration? Negative 1 through 1. Okay. All right. So what you get there is basically you just simplify that once. Okay. So when you simplify, what do you get? You get so how much is t 1/3 plus 1? You will get t to the 4/3 over 4/3, right? Minus 8t. Again, the limits of integration are negative 1 through 1. So let us write in little nice form. So how do I write this fraction in the denominator? I write 3 over 4 and then I write t to the 4/3, right? And then minus 8t, but the limits of integration are negative 1 through 1, right? So let us plug in 1 first. So 3/4, 1 to the 4/3, right? And then minus 8 times 1. That's what I plug in 1, and then do minus, and then inside the parenthesis I write 3/4, negative 1 to the 4/3, right? And then minus, so 8 times negative 1. You see that? So how much do you get there? Okay, so how much is 3/4? How much is 1 to the 4/3? 1 to the 4/3 is basically 1, right? Minus 8 minus. So how much is 3/4? So negative 1 to the 4/3. So how much is that? So negative 1 to the 4/3 can be written like this, right? So let me do it slightly somewhere. So if you want to know how much is the negative 1 to the 4th third, so what you can do is, you see negative 1 to the 4th third, right? You can write negative 1 to the 4th, right? And then times 1/3. You see that? So that will be basically negative 1 to the 4th is positive 1 to the 1/3, right? So any finite exponent of 1 is 1. So this will be basically, this will become basically 1. You see that? So this will be basically 1. All right. So let me write that. Okay. So this will be times 1. And then minus 8 times negative 1 will be plus 8. You see that? Okay. Now, what happens after that is 3 times 1 is 3/4 minus 8, and then minus 3/4, right? And then minus 8 again, because you distribute that negative sign to both of these, right? So you cancel the positive 3/4 and negative 3/4. What you get is negative 16. That is your integral value, okay? The value of the definite integral. Okay guys, so let us do some more examples there. So I want to do example number 6. Okay, so that will be let us do some example with the trig functions. Okay, so evaluate this integral. So 0 to pi, exactly the same technique for all of those. Okay, sine x minus 4, and then you do dx. So how do I do this problem? It's basically the same thing, right? So you find out the integral of sine x. Do you remember what is the integral of sine x? It is negative cosine of x. Why? Because the derivative of negative cosine x will be positive sine x, minus, what is the integral of 4? That will be 4x, right? Now you write down the limit 0 to pi. Now what you do is you plug in pi to both of these. Negative cosine of pi minus 4 pi. I plug in the upper limit, right? And then do minus, I will plug in the lower limit. Negative cosine of 0, and then minus 4 times 0, right? Okay, so what is the value of cosine of pi? So cosine of pi is negative 1, but there is one negative already, so positive 1 minus 4 pi. Minus minus plus, what is cosine of 0? It is 1, and minus times minus is plus 0, right? You see that? So how much is that? This is pi. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and then minus 4 pi, right? So the answer is 2 minus 4 pi. Okay, so the answer is 2 minus 4 pi. Let us do another example. I want to do example number 7. So that has a little bit of the trig function again. Okay, so find the integral of 0 to pi over 4, okay, 3 minus 3 sine square theta over cosine square theta, and then there is d theta. Do you have any idea how do I do this problem? There are so many ways to do this problem, but the easiest way would be, again, there are many ways, right? What you can do is you can split 3 over cosine square, and then 3 sine square over cosine square, and then write tangent square and change that into secant. But the easiest way would be, what is the common on the top? Just take that out. So 0 to pi over 4, and then you take 3 out. What is left? It's 1 minus sine square theta, right? Over cosine square theta. You see that? Oh, by the way, I forgot to write, this one will be, there is 5 there, 5 cosine square theta, right? So this will become 5 cosine square theta. Okay, there is d theta, don't forget that. So what you get is 0 to pi over 4. Who remembers what is 1 minus sine square theta? That is cosine square theta, right? Because there is a formula. The formula is sine square theta plus cosine square theta equals to 1, right? That's why sine square square theta. So subtract sine square theta from both sides. Sine square theta. If you do that, then you will get cosine square theta equals to 1 minus sine square theta. You see that? So basically I use that as a cosine square theta for the 1 minus sine square theta. Okay, so what you get is 3 cosine square theta over 5 cosine square theta. Actually, we haven't done the entire derivative here so far, right? What we're trying to do is we try to simplify and write in easier form first before you integrate. So you divide cosine square theta by cosine square theta, you cancel out, so that becomes 0 to pi over 4, right? 3/5 d theta. So what is the integral of 3/5? So 3/5 will be 3/5 theta, right? And then the limit of integration is pi over 4. Now what you do is you now plug in. That will be 3 over 5 times pi over 4 and minus 3 over 5 times the 0, right? If you simplify, you will get 3 pi over 20. That is your answer. Okay, guys? So I will do few more examples. All right? So let me pick one example that is given slightly differently. What it says is, let me write down that. So that says, find the area, number 8, find the area of the region bounded by y equals to x squared, negative x squared plus 10x, and then y equals to 0. Okay, so here you need to know how does the graph look like first. Okay, so let us see how does the graph look like for this example. Okay, so because this is a quadratic and where the first term is negative, the a is negative, meaning it is a parabola that opens downward, right? And I want to know that what are the x-intercepts for this problem. It looks like, how do I find out the x-intercept? Okay, to find out the x-intercept, you said y equals to 0 and then negative x squared plus 10x. Okay, so now how do I solve it? You take negative x out, you get x minus 10, right? If you solve this, you will get x equals to 0 and then x equals to 10. So these are the x-intercepts. So this is 0, this is 10, right? So your x-intercept will be, it will look like this, right? But the question is asking you to find out the area between this curve and then y-axis, x-axis, right? Y equals to 0 is x-axis. Okay, this is basically x-axis, right? This y equals 0 is x-axis. So you want to find out the area between area under this curve and then between 0 and 10. So how do I find out the area then? So basically what you do is on the solution, actually solution started from here. I first find out the limit, because the limit is not given, you will have to find out here. Okay, guys, so the area is, you write 0 to 10, x runs from 0 to 10, and then the function, right? What is the function? Negative x squared plus 10x, and then there is dx. Now find out the integral there. You get negative x to the third over 3 plus 10 times x squared over 2, right? That's what you get. And then what are the limits? Limit is 0 to 10. See that? Now what I want to do is I want to plug in. So negative 10 to the cubed over 3 plus, this is 10 divided by 2 is 5, and then 10 to the square, right? And then minus, you plug in 0. So when you plug in 0, this will become 0, that will become 0, because both of them have x, right? So now what you do is negative 1000, right? 10 to the cube is 1000 over 3 plus, it is 500. Yes. So what you get is basically, if you use calculator, you will get 500 over 3, or you can just use by hand, right? So it is like 500 is 1500 over 3, so 1500 over 3 minus 1000 over 3 is 500 over 3. Okay guys, so I will put more examples in the next video. All right.